Just when you thought the AFC preview was fun, it is NFC preview time. The Rams travel to New Orleans, or New Orleans, however you're supposed to say it, to take on the Saints. Drew Brees, one of the GOATs. Okay, let's throw that out there right out of the gate. Drew Brees, one of the best to ever do it, one of the best to ever line up under center for any team, under any circumstances. Drew Brees is one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Not mentioned in the conversation with Peyton Manning, with Tom Brady, with Joe Montana, with Brett Favre. And I don't know why. I really don't. For the life of me, I don't know why. I've said this multiple times. I'll say it again just to remind the audience that, in my opinion, Drew Brees, when it's all said and done, is one of the most underrated players to play in this game and has had one of the most remarkable NFL careers that I could remember, at least we'll just say in my era, but that I could remember. You really think about how far he has come from the shoulder injury that he suffered when he was the San Diego Chargers quarterback. Ultimately, they let him go. They were willing to say, hey, we got Phillip Rivers. We know what we got with him. We think you're damaged goods. See you, buddy. Take care. You know, Drew Brees was looked at as a huge risk by 30 of the 32 teams. Well, we'll just say, 30 of the 32 teams in the National Football League looked at him as a risk. There were two teams that thought that he was not a risk. One of those teams was the New Orleans Saints, and the other team was the Miami Dolphins. Nick Saban rolled out his recruiting hat, put his hat on to try to recruit Drew Brees to come to South Beach, and he didn't make that happen. Whatever happened, whatever went down, we'll probably hear about it, in the future in a Drew Brees 30 for 30, because I feel like there should be some sort of documentary about Drew Brees at some point. But whatever he did to miss on that player, who ended up being one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, breaking records that are all-time records, held by all-time greats, shattering single-season passing records, shattering them again, breaking his own records year after year after year, 76% completion percentage in this season. Truly fantastic what he's been able to accomplish at his age, doing it at a high level, with arguably the most talent around him that he's ever had. And that says a lot, because the Saints have been one of those teams that's been in the mix ever since Drew Brees went to New Orleans to become their quarterback. And it was this, well, we're at a low point in our franchise history. Hurricane Katrina happened. It's decimated our city. We need a guy to come here to bring some hope to the people, a guy that's got a good head on his shoulders, a guy that's got the, I don't want to say Tim Allen and home improvement quality, but Drew Brees has this just everyman quality that people can really respect. He's a father. He's a mentor to a lot of young quarterbacks in the NFL. If you want to look at one of the guys that's a pillar for success, if I were to embark on a professional quarterback journey, Drew Brees would be one of the few guys that I'd look at and say, that's the path that I want to follow. This guy's done it the right way, battled back from an injury, and has been fantastic. And that guy that probably has made that distinction and has said, well, who's one guy that I'd like to really model my career after, is Jared Goff. And it's a similar story in both of these games. You have the old guard versus the new guard. You have Brady versus Mahomes. You have Goff versus Brees. And it's a great narrative heading into these two matchups that dictate who will represent each conference in the Super Bowl, who will represent the NFC and who will represent the AFC. I already gave you my take on who I think will represent the AFC. Tune into that. But as far as this NFC matchup, I think this is the better X's and O's matchup. I look far more forward to how these coaches will game plan for each of these respected teams. How will Wade Phillips throw his vaunted front seven at Drew Brees? How will Wade Phillips force his DBs to cover who I believe is the best receiver in the game outside of DeAndre Hopkins? And that would be Michael Thomas. As far as the two prime, ready, willing, able, capable receivers, Michael Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins are the cream of the crop. I know you guys can throw me, Antonio Brown. You can throw me Odell Beckham. You can throw me Julio Jones. But those guys have been doing it for a little bit. Jones and Brown specifically. A.J. Green has been doing it for a little while as well. Those guys are above the age of 30. Beckham, obviously still young. You could put him in this mix. But I think Michael Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins have really they've really showed up. They've really arrived in the National Football League. And Thomas getting the amount of catches that he has for his career within a 3-year span, I believe it's over 500. That's fascinating to me that he is at that point. That just shows you how good Michael Thomas is, but that shows you how good Drew Brees is as well. It's a very tough offense. You have one of the best quarterbacks to ever do it. You have the best wide receiver in the game currently, and you have who I believe is one of the best running backs that I have ever seen in Alvin Kamara. And on the other side, you have the young tag team duo of Jared Goff slinging it wherever he wants, Marino style, to the Todd Gurley, Eric Dickerson-esque running back that has been one of these guys that can be categorized with the Bells and the Elliots and the David Johnsons and one of the elite of the elite. I think this matchup in the NFC offers truly two of the best teams in the NFL. And I know that they're the 1 seed in the NFC and the 2 seed in the NFC, but I think that this is the best matchup that football has offered us all year long. They've already played each other. The Saints came out with a real close win, but I think on this stage, this matchup really will dictate possibly who wins the Super Bowl with the Rams and the Saints. The Saints really did what they needed to do in crunch time against Philly. When the going got tough, they showed up, down 14-0. The defense was very clutch, especially towards the end of the game. The ball did slip through Alshon Jeffrey's fingers, but prior to that, it was really tough sledding for the Philadelphia Eagles, defending Super Bowl champion offense, to combat that Saints defense. That Saints defense has gotten better. They can cover well. They tackle well. They do the little things right. You can only name a few select superstars on that defense, but it's not really what defense has always been about. It's not always been about having a group of superstars. It's about having a group of players that follow the scheme, know their role, and those are the teams that are successful in the National Football League. Mentioned all these superstar wide receivers. Where are they at? They're at home. They're not playing in the playoffs. Doesn't take a team of superstars to win a Super Bowl. Everybody should know that by now. Heck, last year, the Eagles won it with a backup quarterback, supposedly. I think he's a starter, but that's another topic for another day. But the Saints and the Rams will be a real fun matchup to watch in terms of X's and O's. I think this one will have the same result as the first matchup, though. I think the Saints will pull this one out. And I think that Drew Brees is really looking at the tape this week, because last week he hadn't played in a few weeks prior to that game against Philly, and you could tell he was just a little bit rusty. I do not think that will be the case. I think the Saints will pepper this Rams defense by dropping the ball into Alvin Kamara's arms in the flat, and by really methodically breaking down this defense, forcing the Rams to pass rather than the Rams running the ball. The Rams are going to try to run the ball to wear down the Saints defense, to keep the Saints offense off the field. But I think the Saints defense will show up. They'll do some decent things against Todd Gurley, keep him at bay, force Jared Goff to throw it. And if this is a throwing match, if this is a shootout, Drew Brees is the wild, wild man in the West. Or we'll just say the wild man in Baton Rouge. So I think this is going to be a really good game. I think this is going to be a back-and-forth battle. I think it's going to be a close game. And I see a lot of points getting scored. I don't know why. I don't know. I really don't. I don't have an answer for that. Just in my mind, I envision over 30 points scored by each team. I'm going to go 35 to 38. New Orleans winning this game. Putting up record points, record numbers. Goff and Breeze battling it out in a shootout. The run game of the Rams is going to be forced to basically, they're going to have to force the Rams to throw the ball to Todd Gurley. The Saints are going to have to force the Rams to play offense their way. And I don't think they can do it. We'll see. But I got the Saints, which would mean I have the Saints and the blank in the Super Bowl. Tune into the AFC portion of my preview and find out who I believe will win in the AFC championship game. And obviously, if you missed this one, I'll post it for you. Very excited, though, for these two games. I think these are the four best teams that the NFL has to offer. I'm not just saying that because they're seeded that way as the two best teams in each conference, but I really truthfully think that the seeds were right, that these were the four best teams that the NFL had to offer. It's going to be a great, great battle between all four of these teams to see who represents the AFC and NFC in the Super Bowl. Ryan Thomas, it was the Thomas Take. Take care.